And in the studio, I've got John Lawson, who's going to, we're going to kind of swap the situation. He's going to interview me this morning. The film's name is Xtreme Waste Community Enterprise.
Okay, I know I've seen a trailer, but I can't remember how I found it or where it is.
If you go to YouTube and Google Xtreme Waste Community, not Google, but search for Xtreme Waste Community Enterprise, you will get to see it.
Well, I think lots of people are interested in extreme waste because they come round and collect our rubbish and recycling every week. So it's an integral part of the town.
Yeah, it is. Everyone. It's not like nobody. I don't doubt there's anyone in Raglan that doesn't know what extreme waste is.
Yeah, they probably do quite a number of other jobs as well, though, don't they? Like cleaning up the gully traps and emptying the waste bins,
the litter bins in town. Yeah, all sorts of obscure little jobs like that. They also do kind of quite different things. Like they do a lot of education in schools all through the Waikato district, and at the moment they're consulting with Auckland Council for some work that might be happening up there. So yeah, when they started they didn't really know much about anything to do with recycling and rubbish, but now they've reached the point where councils are consulting with them.
Originally the council was quite sceptical about a community group working and doing anything, and they wanted an established company to be doing it. The Waikato District Council. Yes. Yeah, and we go into that in the film. There was it wasn't a good relationship for a very long time, and some of it's understandable that the council had only ever worked with commercial enterprises, never worked with a community group, and initially didn't know whether they could do the job properly or whether it was all pie in the sky stuff and it was all going to crash in a heap. Which you could understand, from their perspective, it was completely out of left field, or Raglan as we call left field. Yeah. Have you worked out whether it did ever get close to crashing in a heap?
Oh, several times, I would say.
So have you covered that in the film as well?
Oh, I mean, were they close to tipping over?
Yeah.
Or not, or rather, were they close to not doing the job? Well, they had,
because there were quite a number of complaints at one stage from the community board, and those seem to have subsided.
Yeah, well, there's certain things that happened because when they started, because nobody was recycling anywhere in New Zealand. No councils were doing it. There were just a couple of other community groups like Xtreme Waste that already existed, where that was happening. So for a lot of people in town, I think especially the older people who all their lives they'd used to, you go to the dump, you dump your rubbish, that's it, and then all of a sudden they go up there, and there's this bunch of people who might be considered hippies by some, and they're asking them to sort through their rubbish and pull out the recycling and separate it from the rubbish. And I think for some people who, for their whole lives, they'd just be happily dump it and go, they weren't very happy about getting their hands dirty, perhaps.
Yeah.
So I think there was a lot around that. Yeah.
It's been a complete change of attitude, really, isn't it? And presumably you've covered that in the film, have you? And talked to various people about how their attitudes have changed.
Well, I haven't gone and interviewed people who were anti-recycling who've changed their minds, but it's touched upon. There's a lot. I mean, I could have made a film that was 10 hours long, which would have sent people to sleep and covered every aspect of it. So you kind of.
So how long is this film?
It's about 48 minutes. So yeah.
And when are we going to get to see it rather than just the trailer?
The weekend of the raft race, the raft race is the 2nd of March on the Sunday, so either going to be Friday night or Saturday night. I haven't quite sorted a venue or a location yet, but working on it.
So it's not going to be necessarily the old school. It could be somewhere else.
We're going to have a premiere, and
the old school's too small, is it?
Yeah, well, I mean, I interviewed a lot of people. If all the people I interviewed turn up, we'd fill up the old school, let alone their friends or family who might want to come along. Are you going to have some cake, John?
Is that recycled?
No, not as far as I know. Okay. Sorry, I bought some cake earlier and I've offered it to John, but he said he'll have his breakfast later. What were you asking?
Yeah.
We're going to show the old school.
Venue, yeah, and where it's going to be, so it might be in the town hall or somewhere like that.
It can't be in the town hall because it's booked out for weddings all through March.
Oh, okay.
So check that out. Yeah, and they get the whole weekend. They get Saturday to set up and... Yeah, it was just a no.
Quite a number of other good venues around town which are quite big. So there's the bowling club and St Peter's Hall and various others. So I presume you're checking out those at the moment.
Yeah. There's heaps. There's actually heaps of big venues. So yeah, I just assume there'll be more people. We could easily fill. At minimum we could fill the old school twice. I suspect. I hope. If 30 people turn up, I'll be a bit sad, but.
So presumably you're hoping that this is the launch of something that's going to get used quite a bit elsewhere and be seen around the country, around the world. What are you hoping for?
Well,
when you can I must admit, BAFTA awards.
I must admit, the large part of the motivation was just because I wanted to make a film, and it was an interesting subject. And there's a whole lot of promotion you have to do if you want your film to go far and wide, and I don't really have time for that, or I'm not that excited about it, like travelling around the place. But I'm going to try and enter it in a few film festivals around the country and overseas. I mean, there's lots and lots of film festivals these days. You don't have to send it to the huge ones. There's lots of other little ones, and there's ones that are specifically environmental. So hopefully it will travel. It'll travel far and wide within the community recycling network. I'm not sure how many there are in New Zealand, similar to Xtreme Waste one way or another. There must be 10 or 15 like that, and then there's others overseas. And in actual fact, I've interviewed people from organisations overseas, so get a bit of an international perspective on Xtreme Waste.
Because Waiheke had a very similar organisation, and they've lost the contract. And have you covered that aspect?
Yeah, we do. We look at Waiheke, and also down in Wanaka Wastebusters, a similar thing happened to them. In Waiheke, I think it completely killed them off. At Wanaka, it hasn't done that. They've got enough other stuff going on that they're able to survive. But this is where I'm probably known for the kind of the political stuff I get into, especially if people remember the Under the Radar show I used to do. So the film does get into a little bit of. There's a real thing about the corporate approach versus the community approach to just in this industry, and so I get into a bit of a kind of analysis of how that. Yes, how that's worked, and that's what's happened with on Waiheke and Wanaka, is that kind of corporate solutions to waste have come in and kind of killed them off. So it's a bit hard to explain.
Do you know how well it's working on Waiheke now that it's no longer a community organisation, but a multinational?
I don't think it's there.
In terms of recycling.
Well, what happened in Auckland was that at the time that when they lost their contract, which is 2009, there was a thing called a MRF built, which is MRF is MRF, Materials Recovery Facility, which is basically is a really big building with lots of conveyor lines in it, and it does the sorting. Like people will have seen the guys from Xtreme Waste sorting the stuff in the trucks, and also sorting stuff in the shed out the back at Xtreme Waste. Well, these big MRFs, they sort it by machine. So
it's capital replacing labour, so the jobs that have been created at Xtreme Waste could be at risk if that happened.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I go into that as well, just how many jobs, and I won't say how many because I want people to come and watch the film, but it's fully explained. I mean, you've cottoned on to a big issue there.
Because there is a risk to Xtreme Waste when the next contract comes up, isn't there? When is that?
It's been discussed at the moment. Like it's due this year. So
to some extent, this film is a promotion for that contract, is it?
Well, it will work out that way, yeah. I mean, the timing... Like, I've been trying to get this film made for 4 years, so... and doing it in my spare time. It's a very long, slow process making a film, especially when you don't do it full-time and you're a bit inexperienced. It takes even longer.
How experienced are you? Have you done any other films like this before?
Not like this, not one so long. So I had to develop a little bit of the whole idea of a narrative and giving space for people to absorb things and think a bit themselves and things like that. But what were we talking about? The MRFs, the contract renewal.
Yeah.
yeah. So it will. It has kind of timed like that, and I will say the film is positive about Xtreme Waste. I mean, I always had a positive view of Xtreme Waste, but then when I started doing some research and looking into it, I actually became even more impressed with the positive influence they have on Raglan. And it's at a great many levels. You know, it's social, environmental, and financial benefits the town in a great many ways. Especially people will be surprised just how much financially it benefits the town.
Yeah, because there's the jobs that are created, and presumably there's also quite an amount of goodwill feeling that people actually come and want to go and see what's happening up there, because quite a number of people have heard about it and visit Raglan. And whenever I talk to people about Raglan, Xtreme Waste and Harbour Care are usually the organisations that they mention.
Yeah, they have a lot of people coming, I think even from overseas lately as well, and also from other councils. Ironically enough, as you said earlier, that originally their experience with councils was fairly negative, but it's come full circle now. And yeah.
Do you look at why that has happened?
Yeah, I do. It's I think generally, I think it's just a generational thing. The establishment hadn't heard of this and didn't trust it, but once they've been around for several years and proven themselves, and new staff came on board, and attitudes to recycling have changed as well. Like when they started in 2000, as I said before, nobody was recycling anywhere. In this country, yeah, of course, overseas it had been going on for ages. A little bit behind in New Zealand on these things. So much for the clean green image, but yeah, through the early 2000s, that all changed, and by the end of the 2009-10 period, I think every council in the country recycles. So yeah, it's gone from being something that weird hippies do in Raglan to a perfectly normal part of our services. Oh, that's what I was going to say before. These MRFs, these big recycling things. You asked me how good a job they did. Mm-hmm. Well, the MRF, when it was set up in Auckland, did a very bad job, because what they do is, instead of the stuff being sorted at the curb or anything like that, they it just all gets chucked into a truck. All your glass, your plastic, your paper, your cardboard, everything gets chucked into a compactor truck, so it gets all crushed up, so all the glass gets shattered, and then it gets dumped on the floor of this huge room at the start of the MRF, and big loaders load it into the conveyor system, and away it goes. And Paper Reclaim wasn't able to use the paper because it had really fine splinters of glass in it, and the glass people weren't able to make use of the glass for recycling bottles. It could only be used for aggregate in roads because it was such poor quality. So the big fancy machine, which actually looks really cool, all these conveyor belts everywhere and all this stuff happening, people get quite excited about it, but it wasn't doing as good a job as people were doing.
Yeah, because presumably it works with a centrifuge, does it? And the heavier objects fly off to the outside. And
there's all sorts of different things. I don't know, I haven't seen a centrifuge, no.
Okay.
But if you're really keen, you can actually just look on YouTube. It's really funny. There's all these, the concept of train spotters who used to stand on bridges and write down the number of trains as they went past. Well, there's these guys who go in and they just love to video technological things. So they video the wheelie bin trucks that pick up the wheelie bin and dump it, and then they go into these MRFs and really enjoy to film all the different aspects of the MRF. So there's a lot of it on YouTube.
Okay, so presumably you've shot a lot of film that you haven't included in this one.
Oh God, yes. Hours and hours, John.
Yeah. How much does it cost altogether? Have you any idea?
If I don't count my time, it's just cost equipment, which is a few $1,000s. But if I was to count my time, you're talking, I don't know, 50,000, something like that. Yeah.
Have you funded it all yourself, or have you got grants or help from
I've got a couple of little grants from the district council, creative community ones. In fact, I'm supposed to mention that as well. I'm obliged to. So thank you for asking. And also the regional council, who they're very pro Xtreme Waste, the regional council. So they were quite keen to see this film as something that could be shown to other community groups, just to kind of give them a vision of what it can be like. I mean, they've been to Xtreme Waste, but it's nice just to have this thing for, if someone, because there's some being set up in the Coromandel, and some of the people come to Xtreme Waste, but they can show the rest of the community there, something like this. So
yep. So that's going to be one of the main uses of it, do you think?
Maybe. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It depends. Once people see it, they'll decide what they want to do. I mean, it's not it's not an instructional film, and it's not a film telling you should recycle, and it's not a film that's trying to scare people into recycling or anything like that. The main focus is the story, and it's quite an inspiring story, considering people started off, a group of people with no money and no resources and not much knowledge, and now they've turned into they're world leaders in what they do. And they had, and there's the traditional kind of story aspect where there's challenges along the way and things they have to overcome and people who oppose them. So yeah, it's at its heart, I guess it's just an inspiring story, really, which is why I wanted to make a film about it.
Yeah. So how did the idea of the film come about? Did you just decide, I want to find out more about Xtreme Waste and I want to make a film? Or?
Well, I've always been into filmmaking, and I thought I might have a bit of foolishly thought I might have a bit of space in my life to make a film.
Then you started doing this show.
Yeah. Well, that was I started making the film way before I started the show, but I had other things on my plate as well. But yeah, I just thought I wanted to make a film, and Xtreme Waste seemed like a good one because I knew the story, and it was all here in town and easy to get access to the people and everything like that. And they were keen as well. I could not have done what I've done without them being positive toward what I was doing. So.
Yeah. So, do you think you might have glossed over some of the problems? And do you see that there have been problems? Are problems?
No, we talk about them. I think one of the things, and this is talked about in the film by someone from council. One of the problems they had is like I said earlier, the council was really worried about, we don't really want this strange group of people to be doing a service that's supposed to be normally provided by a commercial contractor. This is unusual. We're not sure. We don't trust it. So they were only giving them 1-year contracts, and that meant that they couldn't raise a loan because at the moment they've got a 7-year contract. As soon as they got that 7-year contract, they were able to raise a business loan and get some proper equipment. To start with, of course, they couldn't do that. The first 7 years, in fact, of operating up there at Te Hurawai Road, they were operating on single-year contracts. So every cent we had to go somewhere, and there wasn't enough money to go around, and they relied a lot on volunteer labour. A lot of people in Raglan, were committed to it as well. And it did mean that the service struggled a bit. So yeah, there was a lot of that in the start. My observation is it's probably a generational thing, because when I arrived here, my wife and I arrived in Raglan. Actually, we got married the same day that Xtreme Waste started, and then it's
created a connection.
A very important day. Yeah, we didn't know that. We weren't living here then. We moved a few months later to Raglan, but I was like, was I 28, 29, something like that, and Karen was a bit younger, and for us, the idea of recycling seemed perfectly normal, and we thought, hey, this is cool. We're in this town that's recycling. That's all good stuff. Because recycling people knew it was a good idea, but no one was doing it at that point. So for us, all this seemed perfectly natural. But I think for people who, for 40 years of their adult life, had been, just dumping and not having to worry about it, some of them were affronted by this, and were keen to pick holes in Xtreme Waste. But I didn't know this. For 9 years I lived here, and I didn't hear anyone criticise Xtreme Waste. And then I discovered that there's this whole group of people, a lot of whom had been involved with the community board, who were criticising Xtreme Waste. So, yeah. Yeah.
And do you cover that, and do you cover the fact that they don't seem to be doing anywhere near as much these days as they used to?
I don't cover the fact that that's changed, but I do go into... Yeah, I get... That'll be a controversial bit, which some people in Raglan probably won't like, that's in the film. But I go into the reasons they gave for thinking Xtreme Waste weren't very good. And
did you manage to talk to any of those people?
I invited someone to be in the film, but he didn't want to be. He suggested someone else who I didn't think was fair to stand in for someone,
And they're going to remain nameless, aren't they?
Oh, no, in the film, names are named. Because they're well known anyway, and the criticisms have been out there. And I look at the numbers they gave, which were their reasons for criticising Xtreme Waste, and I pull them apart and show that it was frankly quite wrong. So yeah, should we have a little break, or are you getting into this? This is the bit you want to talk about, the controversial bit. I just think it's time for a little ad break and a song. So,
on any sort of show, you have the more controversial bits once you've had a break, don't you?
Yes. Stay tuned. We'll be coming right back with more controversy.